What if I told you that the world's first superhero was actually its first true villain? 5,000 years ago, in the city of Uruk, lived a king named Gilgamesh. He was 2/3 god and 1/3 man, a physical titan who stood over the walls he built. But Gilgamesh wasn't a protector, he was a predator. He worked his people to death and took whatever and whomever he wanted. The citizens of Uruk didn't pray for his long life, they prayed for a savior to stop him. He was basically a superhero with the personality of a modern-day internet troll, and the gods finally decided the only way to save the city was to give him someone his own size to punch. The gods didn't send a stern letter, they reached into the dirt and baked a rival. Enkidu was a wild man who lived with gazelles and had never seen a razor or a tax bill. When he finally arrived in Uruk to challenge the tyrant, they fought so hard the doorpost shattered. But after the dust settled, Gilgamesh realized he hadn't found an enemy, he'd found a bro. Suddenly, the world's most dangerous man had a partner in crime, and instead of ruining Uruk, they decided to go out and ruin the rest of the world for the sake of fame. Gilgamesh convinced Enkidu that they needed to kill Humbaba, the terrifying guardian of the sacred cedar forest. Humbaba hadn't actually done anything wrong, he was just standing in the way of Gilgamesh's legacy. After a brutal battle, they ignored the monster's pleas for mercy and struck him down, cutting down the forest to build a giant door for a temple. It was the first recorded instance of environmental destruction purely for the clout. They returned to Uruk thinking they were untouchable, but in Sumerian mythology, the higher you climb, the harder the gods hit you back. The ancient Sumerians lived in a world of terrifying unpredictability. When the Tigris or Euphrates rivers flooded and wiped out entire villages, they didn't have meteorology. They had, "the gods are mad at us." After Gilgamesh insulted the goddess Ishtar by calling out her terrible dating history, she unleashed the bull of heaven to destroy Uruk. To the Sumerians, a drought or a failed harvest wasn't a weather pattern. It was divine retribution for a king's ego. Gilgamesh and Enkidu killed the bull, but you can't kill a goddess's grudge. The gods decided that for their arrogance, one of them had to die. Enkidu was struck with a divine sickness and died in Gilgamesh's arms. For the first time, the God King realized that his 2/3 divinity didn't mean anything if he still had to rot like a peasant. Panic-stricken and smelling like a man who hadn't showered in months, Gilgamesh wandered the desert searching for Utnapishtim, the man who survived the Great Flood and was granted immortality. He crossed the waters of death, desperately looking for a cheat code to avoid the grave, only to find a bitter old man who told him that trying to live forever is like trying to catch the wind. Gilgamesh failed every test the gods gave him. He couldn't even stay awake for a week, proving he definitely couldn't conquer death. He returned to Uruk empty-handed, but as he looked at the massive walls he had built, he finally understood the dark humor of the universe. You don't live forever, but your mistakes might. He carved his failures into stone tablets, creating the world's first piece of literature. He died an old man, realizing that in a world where gods throw floods like temper tantrums, the only thing that lasts is the story you leave behind. Subscribe if you want history that's accurate, but feels like a thriller. This is the history dude. And history, it's rarely destroyed from the outside alone.